Hey everybody, welcome to For the Meeple, by the Meeple. My name is Mike Carpenter, and today we are taking a look at King of Tokyo. This is a 30-minute Yahtzee variant in which players are taking control of monsters and trying to do the most damage to the city of Tokyo, or simply outlast all the other monsters. Let's take a look.
Here's the setup for a 3-player game of King of Tokyo. It is important to note that in a 5 or 6 player game of King of Tokyo you will have slightly different rules, but it really only involves the Tokyo base based on the main board. Now the other components of the game, each player is going to receive a player board, and these have 2 tracks on them. The victory point track, which goes all the way to 20, and if a player is ever able to score 20 points, they win the game. And they also have a health point track, and if a player ever drops to 0, they will be eliminated from the game. Each player will start with 10, and they cannot go past 10 unless they receive some type of benefit from a card in the game. If all players are ever eliminated but one, that player will win the game. There are also energy cubes, which are just green cubes, and they correspond to one of the icons on the dice. There is a deck of 66 cards. At the beginning of the game you're going to flip over the top 3. Each of these cards has a cost in the top left, an effect at the bottom, and each will say either keep or discard. And the final component and the main component are these six-sided dice. Now each of these are identical, and these are the 6 sides of the dice, and we will elaborate on those sides in a little bit. Now King of Tokyo, a turn in King of Tokyo is broken down into 4 steps. The first step is to roll and re-roll dice. The second step is to resolve the dice that you keep after your 3 rolls. And the third step is to choose whether or not you would like to buy a card. This part is optional, and to buy a card you would simply turn in the corresponding number of energy cubes based on the cost in the top left corner. The fourth step is just simply end your turn and play will pass to the left. As I said, the main component of the game are these 6 black dice. Now these are the 6 sides that are on each dice, and the lightning bolt just simply means for each lightning bolt a player resolves, the player will receive 1 green energy cube. The heart will allow a player to heal 1 life point on their heart track. If a player has 10, they cannot go higher than 10 unless they have been given the special ability by a card. And these numbers, the 1, 2, and 3, only matter if you are able to accumulate 3 of a number or more. So if a player were to resolve 3 2s or 3 1s or 3 3s, they're going to score the number that is on the dice. So this player would score 2 points on the star track, not 6. Now if a player is ever able to accumulate more than 3, each additional die after the initial 3 will give the player 1 point. So in this case the player would score 2 for the initial 3, 1 for the additional, for a total of 3 stars on the star track. So then the player would, once they've resolved the dice, would move the track to 3. Now the other important symbol in the game are these pawns. What these pawns do is deal damage to the other monsters.
So now we're going to walk through how a turn in King of Tokyo would play. The active player is going to roll all 6 dice and see that they have rolled 3 2s. So they're going to hold on to those 2s, because if you can accumulate 3 of the same number, you will score that many points on your star track, on your player board. They have rolled a lightning bolt and 2 hearts. Now at the beginning of the game, the hearts aren't going to help you at all because you haven't taken any damage. So they have chosen they're going to choose to re-roll these 2 dice. So on the second roll, the player has rolled a heart and a lightning bolt. Now the player wants the second lightning bolt, but they do not need the heart. Now, it's important to realize that between the second and third rolls, a player can re-roll any of the dice that they have already kept between the first and second roll. So if I wanted to re-roll all of the dice, or even just re-roll my 2s and my heart, I can. But in this case, the player is going to keep their 2s for the 2 points and keep the 2 lightning bolts and just re-roll their 6 dice, which was the heart. And the roll is a 2. So now the player is going to receive 2 points for the initial 3 when in the second step of the turn, which is to resolve the icons. So again, they will receive the 2 points for these initial 3 2s and an additional point for the fourth 2. So the player is going to receive 3 stars on their star track. The player will also receive 2 green cubes from the supply, 1 for each of the lightning bolt icons that they are resolving. Now, the third step is for the player to see if they would like to, or decide if they would like to buy any of the cards that are face up. In this case, the player cannot afford any of the cards that are face up. However, since they have 2 cubes, if they would like to, they could sweep the 3 cards and place 3 new cards on the board. They would have to spin their 2 cubes and put them back in the supply to do so. The fourth step is just simply for the turn to end and play to pass to the player on the left.
At the beginning of the game, no monsters are in Tokyo City or Tokyo Bay in a larger 5 or 6 player game. So when the first player to resolve a pawl is going to take Tokyo City. That player is also going to receive 1 point on their star track. Once a player has occupied Tokyo City, the pawl dice that are resolved are going to function differently. When a player is in Tokyo City and resolves pawls, they are going to deal that number of damage to all monsters that are not in Tokyo City. So if the king were to resolve 2 pawls, both the Kraken and the Cyber Bunny would receive 2 points of damage each. Any monster that resolves a pawl that is not in Tokyo City will deal damage just to the monster that is in Tokyo City, or again, Tokyo Bay in a larger game. Monsters that are in Tokyo City may not use hearts to regain health points. So the way to combat that is if they are attacked and receive damage, then they can concede the location, and the player that has dealt the damage must take Tokyo City. A player does not have to relinquish the location though, and can continue to stay in Tokyo City for as long as they feel comfortable and don't feel that they are going to die. If a player takes Tokyo City from the current player that is in Tokyo City, they will also receive the 1 point for taking Tokyo City. If a player can ever start their turn in Tokyo City, they will receive 2 points. The game continues like this until one player is able to accumulate 20 points on the star track, or all but one monster have been eliminated from losing all 10 health points. The player that does either of these is the winner of the game.
Let me start by saying that there is no doubt that King of Tokyo has a strong presence in the board game community. And that's because there are a lot of good things about this game. For instance, it is very easy to teach, very easy to learn, and it plays quickly. Which means that you can introduce this game to a variety of types of players. I can show this to kids and they're going to grasp the theme. Really like the theme, they're going to grasp the strategy and the mechanisms, and they're going to enjoy the toy-like vibe that the game gives off. I can introduce this to new gamers because most people are familiar with the Yahtzee idea of rolling dice, keeping dice, and then rolling again. And even if they aren't, it's not a difficult mechanism to grasp. The third is I could show this to avid gamers and they can use this as a filler for when they're waiting on people or they just don't have the time to start a complex game with a longer play time and a deeper strategy. So it fits a lot of areas, and I could see it being used by a lot of groups, and I think it's already proven to have done that. However, for me personally, I just don't enjoy the game all that much. Something about it just doesn't really make me enjoy the mechanisms. I do like rolling dice. I like Yahtzee variants. It's just something about this one just doesn't engage me quite enough. I do feel that part of that is because once you figure out that being combative isn't really going to be in your favor, and all you should really be doing is trying to get those points and score as many as you can, some of the shine is lost in this game. Now, that is not necessarily the game's fault. That is more so the players have almost solved the game essentially and are just trying to win. Now, that in itself takes away a lot of the fun of a board game. Whereas, and in this one, this game can offer a big fun factor, especially for kids and new gamers. If they're not trying to solve the game necessarily, they're going to enjoy the combative nature that this game presents to you. It doesn't present trying to get the points as quickly as possible. It's saying, let's knock the other monsters around and enjoy ourselves because of this fun factor. Once you've played it several times and you start to shift towards trying to build the points, it just basically becomes like any other Yahtzee variant with some card play mixed in. And after a while, I've kind of lost my interest in that part of the game. Again, however, I do use it in scenarios where I'm playing with kids, or I think it's the right game to introduce to a new group of friends. So I rated a 6 out of 10. That's a personal rating. The game itself, I could see it being rated very highly by a lot of groups, and it is. That fact is justified or validated by the game's ratings online. Just for me personally, I don't find the game to be quite what everyone seems to think of it. So, King of Tokyo, it's a great gateway game. It's a great filler. I have moved on from it for the most part. I'll go back to it occasionally, but it's just not a game that I personally enjoy all that much. However, I would recommend it to a lot of groups that are looking for a game to fit some of those types of needs. So, that's King of Tokyo. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you again next time, and as always, leave a comment below if you are interested in King of Tokyo. Thanks. Have a good one.